So we're going to take a look at a couple examples of factoring quadratics where the coefficient a is greater than 1. So in this case, I've given 5x squared minus 30x plus 40 equals 0. And we're gonna factor that so we can figure out where the x-intercepts are. The first thing I'm going to do is we want to find a times c. So we've been using this method of just organizing our factoring. So what we've done is we've taken 5 times 40, and now we have positive 200. Step 2 would be to use the b term to figure out what we're adding to. So we want to add to 30. And over here is a factor, and over here is a factor. This is just to help us organize our thoughts and what we need to do. So we need to multiply to get to 200, and we need 2 factors that will add to give us negative 30. Those both need to agree. So if we think about some factors of 200, and we should list those. So take a moment to try and list some of those that you think would get us to 30. So far, I've just listed a couple possibilities. So let's say, all right, 1 and 200 is a factor of 200. But if we add them and keep them both positive, we get 201. We don't want that. What if we try negative 1 and add it to negative 200, just to see what the signs would be? Well, there we get negative 201. About negative 1 plus a positive 200? Well, we'd get 199. What if we did positive 1 and negative 200? So I've just exhausted all of the possibilities, and that's going to give us negative 199. So we know from these results that that's not going to be equal to negative 30. None of them. So we can eliminate those as choices. Now we look at this pair, 20 and 10. Well, if you take 20 plus 10, that's nice. It gives us 30, but that doesn't equal negative 30. So let's think about some signs. It doesn't take too long to see that negative 20 plus a negative 10 will give us a negative 30. That's exactly what we want. That's what we're trying to add up to. But we also know that negative 20 times negative 10 will give us that positive 200 when we multiply. So here's the adding part. Here's the multiplication part to figure out our factors. So now we know negative 20 is one of our factors here, and negative 10 is one of our factors. So I'm going to start with the grouping method. So I've listed out some steps to help us do this grouping method. So we'll consider this option 1. If you like the grouping method, then you should use that. The next thing we'll explore is the area model method. So in the grouping method, the first thing we do is we're going to rewrite the original equation. So the original equation was 5x squared minus 30x plus 40. And there was a reason why we factored. So we can rewrite this as 5x squared minus 20x minus 10x plus 40. And that would be this rewrite original with our factors idea. So the next idea is to group. So we take this 5x squared minus 20x, we can group those together. And we can say plus negative 10x plus 40 as our second group. So the next idea, I say, let's do find common factors. So what's common between 5x squared and 20x? Well, 5x goes into both of them. 5x times x is 5x squared minus 5x times what gives us 20, so 5 times 4, and it already has an x, so we can stop the grouping there. Plus, now we do the next one, and we can factor out negative 10. That goes into both 10 and 40. And we're going to put an x there. And then a negative 4 or minus 4 because this sign of negative 10 times minus 4 is positive 40. And that's exactly what we want to get if we were to distribute it back. That's how we check. Okay. So now we're at a point where we can group these factors or show the distributive property. So the key here is to realize that you have a factor x minus 4 and x minus 4 that are both being multiplied by. One is 10 and the other is 5x. So in our last step, we can group the factors x minus 4, and that's going to multiply by both 5x and negative 10. Now, we don't like to use plus minus in here, so we'll just simplify that. X minus 4 times 5x minus 10. Okay, and that gives us our factors. So if we were to take a look at these and distribute them, we would end up with the original equation, the one we started with at the very top. So now to find the x-intercepts, that's the whole goal of this factoring, is for us to find out x-intercepts of the quadratic. So where it crosses the x-axis. X minus 4 equals 0, and then 5x minus 10 equals 0 is our method of finding the x-intercepts, because we know that really this is like the y value equals 0, y value equals 0. So when we solve that, we can see that x equals 4. So we can say 4 comma 0 is the one intercept. And then this one here, solving these equations, 5x equals positive 10 divided by 5. And then we can see x equals 2. So the other one will be 2 comma 0. So that gives us our first choice, our first method of factoring by grouping. So the other method I'm going to have us take a look at is the area model. But this is the same idea as grouping. It's just going to be shown in a little more of a geometric way. So we're going to take a look at the area model method, and you could definitely use this. This is the same idea, it's just more geometric, like I said. So we're going to place the equation parts into the area model. That's what we're doing right now. So what I mean by equation parts is where would they go? So 5x squared would go here. Plus 40 would go here. And then these two would add up to give you negative 30. So we're going to put the factors that we calculated earlier here. So the idea is to look for the common factor in this column. And as you can see, 5 and an x are common between these two terms. And then we can move over to the next column and ask the same question. What is common between these two here? Well, let's say negative 10, but the x's are not common, so we'll just leave it as minus 10. Now we look into the row 5x squared minus 10x, and the only thing that we see in common is we have a 5 and a 10, but notice that we want to make sure that we get 5x squared. So the only thing that's going to multiply, so this area, and so we know area is base times height, so this square has to be equal to 5x squared. 5x times what gives you 5x squared? So we're going to try x. So it checks out for that box, but let's check over here. So this is we're going to assume this is negative 10 multiplied by x, negative 10. Oh, that works as well. So we've got the right factor there. Now we're going to solve this one. So one thing we want to do is just check, because we already know the tops of these areas are labeled as 5x and minus 10. So we got to ask ourselves, 5x times what gives us minus 20x? Let's try 4. Minus 4. So 5x times negative 4 is negative 20. And then that's checked out. Let's make sure that negative 10, so this is negative 10, and this is negative 4, gives us positive 40. That checks out. So we found those, and now we can write it as a product of two binomials. Well, how do you do that? Well, look at the binomial will be placed on the side. It'll be placed on the top. So we could very well do this, x minus 4 times 5x minus 10. And if you notice, that's the same exact thing we got for the grouping method. So here we are, set it equal to 0, and now we can just solve for the intercepts like we did before and get the same thing. Two methods producing the same answers for us. So it's going to be really up to you what you want to use to be able to factor. So you're factoring where a, the absolute value of a, is greater than 1. And this will help you at least have a method to start learning how to do it. Eventually what you want to do is be able to try and do them mentally and work through all of the combinations just by looking at an equation.